Have you ever looked at your life and said, God, this isn't fair. You've worked hard, you've prayed, you've tried to live right. And still, the doors didn't open, the people you helped turned against you, and the blessings you expected seemed to be delayed. Listen to me carefully. Trusting God is not proven when life is good. It's proven when life feels unfair. Faith is not faith until it's tested in confusion, silence, and pain. When life doesn't make sense, that's when your faith is on trial. And God is not absent. He's observing what you'll do when you don't understand Him. When God is silent, many people think He's forgotten them. They start to question His love, His timing, even His presence. But silence is not absence. Silence is the sound of divine strategy. When God goes quiet, He's not ignoring you. He's organizing something behind the scenes. Sometimes the quietest seasons are the most sacred. They are the moments where heaven is working, but earth can't see it yet. The seed grows best in the dark, not in the light. In the same way, your destiny develops most in the dark moments when it feels like nothing is happening. Have you ever planted something and went back the next day only to find nothing changed? You don't dig it up and accuse the soil. You wait. You trust that something invisible is happening beneath the surface. That's what trusting God feels like when He's silent. You might not see any movement, no messages, no confirmation, no answers, but something is growing. Silence is God's soil of transformation. Think about it. When a teacher gives an exam, they stop talking. The silence of the teacher doesn't mean they left the room. It means the test has begun. Many people panic during life's tests because they expect God to explain every question. But God's silence is not abandonment. It's an invitation to maturity. He's saying, can you trust me when I'm not talking? Can you believe me when you can't feel me? Because real faith is not built in comfort. It's forged in confusion. You can't hear the heart of God if you always need His voice to validate you. Maturity is when you stop looking for signs and start resting in what you already know, that He is faithful. There are moments in life where you'll pray and heaven will seem like it's on mute. You'll ask, God, are you there? And all you'll hear is the echo of your own words. That's when your spirit must remind your emotions. He's still here. He promised never to leave you nor forsake you. His silence is not rejection, it's reflection. He's watching how you'll respond when the answers are delayed. Take the story of a young woman who applied for dozens of jobs after losing her work. Every door seemed to close. She prayed, cried, waited, and all she got was silence. But one day, months later, she received a call from a company she'd never applied to. They had found her RA Summit through a friend. That position turned into the opportunity that changed her life. She looked back and said, if God had answered my earlier prayers, I would have been trapped in a job too small for my potential. That's what divine silence does. It protects you from premature blessings. Sometimes God hides His hand to train your heart. If He told you everything, you wouldn't grow. If He answered too soon, you wouldn't learn endurance. If He explained every delay, you'd never develop patience. Silence forces you to stretch your faith beyond feelings. It teaches you to say, even when I can't see it, I know He's working. Because God's silence doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means something greater is being prepared. There are seasons where you feel like heaven forgot your address. You pray and see no result. You give your best and still get betrayed. You plan carefully and still face chaos. And you think, God, where are you? But listen, when God is silent, He's not punishing you, He's positioning you. Every silence has a purpose. Sometimes He's protecting you from something you can't yet perceive. Sometimes He's building the endurance you'll need for the next level. And sometimes He's waiting for the noise of your worry to die down so you can finally hear His whisper. Do you know why diamonds are so precious? Because they're formed under pressure and hidden underground. You don't see their brilliance until they've been cut, shaped, and polished. Your silent seasons are your cutting seasons. God is shaping you, refining you, preparing you for the moment when he reveals you. That's why it feels painful, that's why it feels lonely, but that's also why it's powerful. Because silence is never empty when God is in it. Think of the farmer again. He doesn't rush the harvest. He trusts the process. You can't dig up the seed because you're impatient. You water it. You wait. You trust. That's faith. You don't give up on what God promised just because you haven't heard from him lately. You remind yourself that God's last instruction is still valid even in his silence. If he said, wait, then wait. If he said, go, then go. But never assume his quietness means disinterest. He's crafting your story in the background, aligning the right people, opportunities, and timing so when the answer comes, it's bigger than what you asked for. The truth is, silence reveals what you really believe. Anyone can trust God when they see results, but can you trust him when it looks like he's gone? Can you still praise when the miracle hasn't shown up? Can you still serve when you feel overlooked? That's when your trust graduates from emotional to spiritual. That's when heaven smiles and says, now you're ready. Because faith is not proven when everything is visible. It's proven when everything is quiet. If you're in a season where God seems silent right now, don't panic. Don't assume he forgot you. Just because the stage is dark doesn't mean the play is over. The director is still present, setting the next scene. You're being prepared for the next act. God's silence means the story is still unfolding, and your part in it is about to make sense. So instead of asking, where is God? Begin to say, what is God preparing? Because he's still there, silent but strategic, hidden but holy, quiet but closer than ever. Life will often hand you moments that make no sense. You'll look around and wonder why the people who lie seem to be succeeding, while the ones who stay honest are overlooked. You'll see others promoted when you've been working harder. You'll feel betrayed by those you helped rise. And you'll say to yourself, this isn't fair. But listen carefully. God doesn't allow unfairness to destroy you. He allows it to develop you. Every unfair situation is a workshop where your character is being forged into something stronger than comfort could ever produce. If everything went your way, you would never grow. If everyone liked you, you'd never learn humility. If every door opened, you'd never learn patience. God uses the sting of unfairness to train the muscles of your integrity. He's not trying to break you. He's trying to build something inside you that can handle the blessing he's preparing for you. Because blessings without character are dangerous. So sometimes God delays your promotion to strengthen your foundation. Think about the story of a young man who worked tirelessly in a company, always the first to arrive and the last to leave. He trained others, supported his manager, and gave his all. But when it was time for a promotion, they gave it to someone else who had connections. He was crushed. It felt unfair. He prayed, he cried, and he even considered quitting. But he decided to stay, not because it was easy, but because he knew his integrity wasn't for sale. Months later, the one who was promoted made a costly mistake that affected the company, and they needed someone dependable to restore order. Guess who they turned to? The same man they overlooked. That moment taught him something powerful. When you remain faithful in unfairness, God will make sure the same people who ignored you will eventually need you. Unfairness exposes what's really in your heart. It's easy to act holy when people treat you right. But what do you do when they lie about you? What do you do when someone steals credit for your work? That's when your real self shows. God watches your reaction in these moments more than your reaction to blessings. He already knows what you'll do when you're blessed, but he wants to see how you'll act when you're bruised. That's why he sometimes allows betrayal, rejection, and disappointment, because those things don't define you, they refine you. A goldsmith doesn't destroy gold in fire. He refines it. When gold is heated, the impurities rise to the surface. The fire doesn't make the gold less valuable, it purifies it. That's what unfairness does to you. It brings your hidden attitudes, fears, and pride to the surface. It's uncomfortable, but necessary. you can't shine until the unnecessary is burned away. So when you face unfair treatment, don't ask, why me? Ask, what is this revealing about me? There was a woman who worked in a team where her effort was constantly ignored. She did the work, others took the praise. She prayed for justice, but God was silent. She started to think he didn't care. But something shifted inside her. She decided to keep serving with excellence, even when nobody noticed. Years later, she started her own business, and all the skills she developed under unfair bosses became the tools that made her company succeed. She realized that what was once unfair was actually training. She said, God used their unfairness as my education. Unfairness has a strange way of teaching you wisdom. It teaches you to stop seeking validation from people. It forces you to depend on God's timing instead of your emotions. It teaches you patience, empathy, and discernment. When you've been mistreated, you become more careful with how you treat others. When you've been broken, you become more compassionate toward those who are hurting. So the very thing that was sent to hurt you becomes the instrument that shapes you into someone greater. Look at nature. Every storm that looks destructive also renews the soil. Every harsh wind that bends the tree strengthens its roots. The strength of a tree isn't proven in the sunshine, it's proven in the storm. In the same way, your faith is not proven in comfort, but in challenge. When life feels unfair, it's your spiritual storm. The roots of your character dig deeper. You learn to stand tall not because life is gentle, but because God has made you unshakable through the winds. Sometimes God will allow people to talk about you unfairly just to teach you how to stay silent and let him defend you. He'll allow people to underestimate you so he can reveal how powerful you are without their approval. He'll even let you experience delay so you can learn that destiny doesn't run on man's schedule. Every no you face is not rejection, it's redirection. Every betrayal is not a setback, it's a lesson in discernment. Every unfair moment is not random, it's calculated to push you toward your next level. So when life feels unfair, don't fight for fairness, fight for faithfulness. Fairness is temporary, but faithfulness lasts forever. The people who wronged you might forget, but heaven never forgets your response. You are being watched not by men, but by destiny itself. God is saying, I'm testing what you'll do when no one claps for you. Will you still give your best? Will you still believe I'm working? That's when your greatness is born, not in applause, but in anonymity. And remember this, those who succeed without character eventually collapse under the weight of their own success. But those who allow God to build them through unfairness rise slowly, yet steadily. They become unmovable, unstoppable, and undeniable. The world may overlook you for a season, but heaven is taking notes. Every tear, every betrayal, every moment you kept going when life wasn't fair, it's building something unbreakable in you. Because while others chase recognition, God is building revelation in you. While others chase quick rewards, he's giving you roots. And one day, the same people who treated you unfairly will watch you rise and realize that what they meant for harm became the very thing that made you strong. Trust is one of the hardest lessons life will ever teach you because it demands surrender without understanding. It's easy to trust God when everything is going well, when doors are opening, when your plans are succeeding, when people are clapping for you. But what happens when you've done everything right and life still hits you hard? What do you do when the people you love betray you, when your health fails, when your plans crumble, and you can't find a reason for any of it? That's where true trust is born. Trust is not tested in clarity, it's tested in confusion. It's when you stand in the middle of chaos and say, God, I don't understand this, but I still believe you. That's real trust. There was a man who lost his job unexpectedly after years of loyalty. He prayed for stability, but instead of an answer, he got silence. Weeks turned into months. His savings began to run out. He started to feel forgotten. One night he said, God, why would you let this happen? I served you. I gave my best. And deep inside, a thought came. Do you trust me, or do you trust what I give you? That question broke him. He realized his faith had been built on the comfort of answered prayers, not on the character of the one he prayed to. Sometimes God removes what's familiar so you can discover what's foundational. Trust begins when you no longer depend on outcomes, but on his nature. You see, when you understand everything, you don't need trust, you just need logic. But life with God isn't always logical, it's divine. It's mysterious. You can't box him into your calendar or your plans. There will be seasons when nothing makes sense, when your prayers seem unanswered, and your future looks uncertain. That's when trust speaks louder than understanding. You might not see what he's doing, but that doesn't mean he's doing nothing. The delays you hate might be the protection you need. The detour you despise might be the direction that saves you. A young woman once told her story of heartbreak. She had been engaged, planning her wedding, excited about the future. But a few months before the wedding, her fiancé walked away with no explanation. Her world collapsed. She felt humiliated and broken. She questioned everything. God, how could you let this happen? I prayed for this relationship. Years later, she met someone else, someone who loved her deeply, respected her, and shared her purpose. She said, if God had answered my first prayer, I would have settled for a life that looked good on the outside but was wrong on the inside. Sometimes unanswered prayers are God's greatest protection. That's trust. Trust says, God, even when you don't explain, I still believe you know what you're doing. There will be moments when your emotions scream one thing and your faith whispers another. You'll want to quit. You'll want to understand, but trust will say, keep walking. Trust is what keeps you moving when your heart is heavy. It's what makes you get up when you don't see progress. It's what helps you smile when nothing around you makes sense. When life blindsides you, trust becomes your vision. It's choosing to believe that even in the dark, God is still directing your steps. Think about an airplane flying through a storm. The passengers can't see the sky, the clouds look thick, the turbulence is shaking the plane, and people are afraid. But the pilot doesn't panic because he's flying by instruments, not by sight. He knows that above the clouds, the sun is still shining. That's how you must live when life feels unfair. Fly by faith, not by sight. Your emotions are like the clouds, they come and go. But trust is the instrument that guides you beyond them. So many people give up because they expect trust to always feel peaceful. But sometimes trust feels painful before it feels peaceful. It's not a feeling, it's a decision. It's waking up and saying, I don't get it, but I choose to believe anyway. The human mind wants control, it wants explanations, timelines, guarantees. But God says, walk by faith, not by sight. That means you won't always see the next step, you just take it. And every step of obedience becomes a bridge between confusion and revelation. A mother once said her son was diagnosed with a rare illness. The doctors had no answers. She prayed day and night. She saw no change. People told her to stop believing, to prepare for the worst. But she refused to give up hope. She said, even if God doesn't heal him the way I expect, I'll still trust his purpose. Over time, her son began to recover. The doctors couldn't explain it. She didn't just celebrate the healing. She celebrated the journey that taught her what trust really means. Trust doesn't mean you always get what you want. It means you believe that whatever happens, God is still good. When you reach the end of your understanding, that's the beginning of faith. And real faith doesn't demand details. It simply says, Lord, I know you're in control. You may not know how things will work out, but you know who holds it all together. You might not see the plan, but you know the planner. You may feel like your world is spinning out of control, but in heaven, God hasn't moved an inch. Trust is what makes you stay calm when others panic. It's what allows you to worship while waiting. It's what gives you peace when you should have anxiety. It's that inner knowing that says, I don't need to see it to believe it. Because faith isn't built in understanding, it's built in surrender. The more you try to control everything, the less you experience the supernatural. But when you release control, you make space for miracles. So when life doesn't make sense, don't let confusion become your compass. Trust is not pretending everything is fine. It's believing that even when it's not, God is still faithful. You don't have to know why it happened, when it will change, or how it will end. You just have to know that God never fails and his plans are never random. Every delay, every detour, every disappointment carries divine intention. The test of trust is not whether you can understand, but whether you can stand firm when you don't. Pain has a way of convincing you that it's permanent. When you're in it, it feels like it will never end. It blinds you to the future and magnifies the moment. You start to believe that the season you're in defines the rest of your life. But what you see as pain, God sees as process. What you call unfair, God calls preparation. There are things you've been through that didn't make sense, moments that broke you, situations that made you cry until there were no tears left. Yet, what if I told you that even in that pain, there was a purpose larger than what your eyes could see? God's plan for your life is always bigger than your current pain, but when you're in the middle of it, it's hard to believe that anything good could come from it. When you hold a puzzle piece in your hand, it looks incomplete, maybe even meaningless. But once it's placed in the larger picture, you begin to understand why it had to look that way. Your pain is a puzzle piece. It doesn't make sense in isolation, but when God finishes the picture, you'll realize why it had to be shaped like that. The heartbreak, the delay, the betrayal, the disappointment, they all have edges that will one day fit perfectly into your destiny. The pain that confused you is the same pain that's preparing you. Imagine a caterpillar trapped in its cocoon. It's dark, it's tight, it's uncomfortable. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening, but inside that darkness, transformation is taking place. The caterpillar doesn't know that its struggle is creating wings. The pressure, the waiting, the pain, they're all necessary for flight. If someone tries to help the butterfly too soon by cutting open the cocoon, it will die because it never developed the strength it needs to fly. The same is true for you. The pain that feels like it's suffocating you is actually giving you the strength to soar. God is saying, I know it hurts, but I'm creating wings. There was a man who was fired from his job after 15 years of service. He couldn't understand why. He had a family to feed, bills to pay, and dreams to pursue. For months he was angry. He blamed God. He said, "Why me? I've been faithful." He didn't know that the company he worked for would later collapse due to corruption. Losing that job was the divine redirection that saved his integrity and his future. A year later, he started a small business out of desperation, which grew into something greater than he ever imagined. The pain of losing his job became the doorway to discovering his purpose. Pain never makes sense while you're in it, but when you look back, you'll see that it was the bridge that took you to a place you never would have reached on your own. Sometimes pain feels like rejection, but it's really protection. You thought that relationship ending was the worst thing that could happen to you, but it was actually saving you from a lifetime of regret. You thought being left out was punishment, but it was preservation. You thought losing that opportunity was the end, but it was only the beginning. God's plan is not limited to your comfort. It's centered on your calling. He's not trying to make you happy. He's trying to make you holy, focused, and unstoppable. And sometimes that means he allows you to walk through pain you don't understand. There's a tree called the Chinese bamboo tree. When you plant it, you have to water it and care for it for 5 years before it ever breaks through the ground. For years, nothing seems to happen. You water it, fertilize it, and wait. Then suddenly, in the 5th year, it shoots up over 90 feet in just 5 weeks. Now, the question is, did it grow 90 feet in 5 weeks or 5 years? The truth is, it was growing the whole time, just underground. The roots were being established deep enough to support its future height. That's exactly what pain does. It builds roots. You think nothing is changing, but beneath the surface, God is anchoring your character so that when your season comes, you won't collapse under the weight of your blessing. There's a hidden beauty in pain that most people miss. Pain forces perspective. It slows you down. It humbles you. It brings out what's real. When everything is comfortable, it's easy to pretend you're in control. But when life hits, when you're broken, when you've run out of answers, that's when you see God clearly. Pain strips away the illusion of control and shows you what truly matters. It refocuses you on what's eternal instead of what's temporary. A woman once said that her biggest heartbreak became her biggest blessing. After losing everything in a business failure, she was forced to move back in with her parents. She felt humiliated and lost. But during that time, she rediscovered her passion for writing. What began as a coping mechanism turned into a book that later changed lives around the world. She said, "If I hadn't failed, I would have never found my purpose." That's how God works. He uses what breaks you to build you. He takes your pain and turns it into a platform. You see, we often ask God to remove our pain, but sometimes He allows it to remind us that there's more inside of us than comfort ever could reveal. Pressure reveals power. Diamonds are not formed in silence and ease. They're created under extreme pressure. Without that process, they remain just coal. God will never waste your pain. Every tear, every heartbreak, every disappointment has meaning. You may feel buried, but you're not buried, you're planted. And when something is planted, it doesn't stay underground forever. It's destined to rise, to bloom, to bear fruit. The darkness you're in is not a grave, it's a garden. And one day, everything you've endured will make sense. But right now, in this moment, you have to remember that pain is not your ending. It's part of your becoming. What you call loss, heaven calls launch. What you call delay, heaven calls design. And what you call failure, heaven calls foundation for something greater. There comes a moment in every life where you have to make a choice to let pain define you or to let it refine you, to keep questioning why it happened or to start believing that it happened for a reason. Life will not always be fair, and God will not always explain Himself. But one thing is certain, He will never fail you. Every storm you've survived, every heartbreak you've endured, every tear you've cried was not wasted. You are not standing where you are by accident. You are standing because purpose refused to let you stay down. Sometimes God doesn't calm the storm because He's trying to teach you how to walk on water. Sometimes He doesn't remove the mountain because He wants to prove that you can climb it. Sometimes He doesn't take away the fire because He knows it's in the fire that gold is formed. You have to stop asking for an easy life and start asking for a strong spirit. Because storms don't destroy strong people, they reveal them. The very thing that tried to break you is the thing God is going to use to build you. There is a strength inside you that pain was sent to uncover. You didn't survive by luck. You survived by purpose. You didn't make it through that season because you were lucky, but because destiny still has plans for you. You were never meant to stay in your suffering. You were meant to grow through it. And when the smoke clears and the dust settles, you'll look back and realize the pain that almost killed you became the platform that elevated you. Don't curse your process. Don't hate the people who walked away. Don't regret the tears. Everything that left you taught you. Everything that hurt you grew you. Everything that confused you positioned you. Life doesn't always give you what you want, but it will always give you what you need. You didn't lose, you learned. You didn't fail, you evolved. The rejection was simply redirection. The breakdown was just the doorway to a breakthrough. Sometimes you have to lose what you wanted to discover what you're worth. Sometimes you have to be broken to become whole. And sometimes God will take everything from your hands until you finally realize that your hands were never what held your future. He was. Trust that. Trust that nothing can stop a person who refuses to give up. You may bend, but you won't break. You may cry, but you won't collapse. You may stumble, but you will still rise. Because within you is the same power that created galaxies, the same strength that turns ashes into beauty. When life feels unfair, lift your head and remind yourself, the same rain that floods the ground also grows the seed. The same heat that melts wax hardens clay. It's not what happens to you that defines you, it's how you respond. You can choose to stay bitter, or you can choose to become better. You can let life make you angry, or you can let it make you aware. You can let pain make you fearful, or you can let it make you fearless. Because pain doesn't mean it's over. Pain means you're being transformed. The truth is, life won't always make sense, but faith doesn't need sense to stand. When everything around you falls apart, faith whispers, keep walking. When everyone turns away, faith says, you're not alone. When life feels unfair, faith shouts, there's purpose in this. You can't always see where God is leading you, but you can trust that He's leading you somewhere worth reaching. And one day, you'll thank Him for every door that closed, every plan that failed, and every delay that forced you to grow stronger than you ever thought possible. So stand tall, dry your tears, straighten your back and tell your soul, this is not how my story ends, because it's not over until victory has the last word. The world might not understand your journey, but they will see your results. Keep your faith, keep your fire, keep your trust, because one day everything that broke you will bless you. Everything that tested you will transform you, and everything that felt unfair will become the evidence that God was working all along.